The 1990s were a savage time. It was before the Me Too movement kicked off, before revenge porn laws were written, before cancel culture could sweep the internet with a quickness, and before it was acceptable for mainstream celebrities to dip their toes into the world of adult content. And so society has undergone a lot of major changes since Pam and Tommy's tape first became public. And so it's no surprise that back in the day, not many people in the press were coming to Pam's defense and talking about how violated she was. Instead, a lot of people assumed she was actually involved in the video's release. But fast forward 30 years to 2022, when Hulu dropped its series showing how Pam was mistreated, and now there's no shortage of folks lining up to have her back and call out all the exploitation and injustice she faced by a sexist society that didn't believe women. Nowadays, Pam's got such a vocal army of supporters pushing for feminism and equality that it almost seems wrong to even dare to question whether Pam still may have been behind the tape's release. But look, just because there were a lot of pervy, chauvinist assholes commenting on her tape back in the day, that doesn't necessarily mean that Pam was just an innocent bystander, especially when you consider how the honeymoon video impacted her career. Remember, the tape was allegedly stolen in 1995, and by that time, Pam had already built her brand on sex, from her cameos on Married with Children to her role as the Tool Time Girl on Home Improvement, and of course her many slow-motion scenes on Baywatch. Look, when people thought of Pamela Anderson, they didn't think of her with clothes on. Not to mention that by 1995, Pam had also posed for several Playboy covers, and Playboy had even dropped that Best of Pamela Anderson video special that year. And so at that point, Playboy clearly knew that Pam was their audience's favorite playmate, and I'm sure they were ready to cash in on that fact when they launched their website in 1995 too, as they saw this revolutionary new internet technology taking off. But despite all of this money that Pam was bringing in for Playboy, remember, she told MTV that she was not getting paid for that, even though she wished she were. So, with that in mind, is it possible that Pam devised a plan to make sure she got paid for what would end up being her biggest release yet? If so, y'all know it wouldn't be the first time that an actress got hugely famous as a sex symbol after a revealing scandal swept the news and also conveniently lined up with the release of an upcoming movie premiere. And speaking of convenient timing, in 1996, right when all of this sex tape drama is really starting to go down, and when Pam and Tommy have just filed their $10 million invasion of privacy lawsuit against Penthouse and Rand and Milton for sharing their private tape, well, it's only about a month later that Pam's very first big feature film, Barbed Wire, gets released. And what is it about?
For people who don't know what it's about, can you sort of summarize what the plot is?
No.
Well, Pam's character is a superhero who is trying to take down an evil government, and she's doing that by, of course, posing as a stripper who seduces her foolish male enemies with her well-displayed assets.
This character is really more like me than the CJ character on television, so people are really going to see a darker, harder side to me. I knew I had to play this character. She's just very ambitious and manipulative and kind of shady and mysterious. All these like really great qualities that I love in people is what she is.
So, if the qualities that Pam loves in people are being ambitious, manipulative, and shady, that does raise some questions about whether we should trust her version of events and whether she was really so mad that this tape came out. After all, it's not like this tape derailed her career afterward. In fact, when a judge in the Penthouse case ruled against Pam and Tommy, he said part of the reason was that they couldn't show that the tape's release was some extraordinary threat to their interests.
You run like Pam, the empire of Pam Anderson. You got the whole day, you got calendars and internets and TV. And I love it!
And when you look at Pam's follow-up gigs, the Stolen Honeymoon tape fits right into the lineup. For example, in late April 1997, which is right around the time that bootlegs of the tape are starting to circulate around Los Angeles, and is also just a few months before Bob's big article on E! Online comes out that shares that link to Milton's site, this is the time that Pam hosts SNL and decides to close her monologue by completely stripping off her clothes on live TV, which you gotta admit, if you were marketing a sex tape, that would definitely be an effective strategy.
Boy, she certainly knows how to make a splash.
It would also be an excellent idea to draw attention to your sex appeal at every chance you get, like writing an autobiography where you plan to have a chapter called The History of My Breasts, or filming a reality show called Pam, Girl on the Loose, which aired on the E! Network. You know, the same network that first shared that URL to Milton's website where he was selling Pam's tape, and the network that refused to take down that link even though Pam told them that the tape was stolen. Yeah, that was the network that Pam chose to work with for her reality show.
Chief Stroganoff, Agent 69, reporting for duty.
And then there was also Pam's animated series called Stripperella, where, again, Pam's character plays a superhero stripper who apparently saves people from being fat. And this show has some disturbingly obvious imagery appealing to whatever her audience is into. Yes, Pam knows how to pick projects that her fans will eat up, and she also knows how to get those projects covered by the press. For instance, every time she and Tommy hit another milestone in their 5-year court battle over the honeymoon tape, the news media would, of course, ask her PR team for a comment, which gave them the chance to plug her projects. Like when they were asked about another sex tape that Pam allegedly made with another rocker that she used to date named Bret Michaels from the band Poison, they issued a statement to MTV denying any involvement and saying they were focused on their family and mentioning that Pam was about to film the Columbia TriStar syndicated television series VIP, which is expected to begin production this spring. A fan site at the time wrote, "If nothing else, Pamela Anderson Lee's legal battles are generating oodles of free publicity." And speaking of free publicity, that brings us back to Hulu's new show, Pam and Tommy, which, again, Pam says she never consented to. But again, the timing is interesting because about a month after Hulu's series came out in February of this year, Pam happened to also make her debut on Broadway starring as Roxy in the musical Chicago.
After that eye-popping Hulu series in which actress Lily James plays her, the real Pam Anderson is enjoying a career renaissance. Welcome back.
That's not all, because she also announced that she would be setting the record straight about Hulu's new show because she was releasing a new documentary on Netflix where she could tell the real story about what happened to her. The convenient alignment of the news about all of these big debuts led one writer on Medium to comment, "I doubt that these are purely coincidences."
Will you tell your version of it?
No, you know what? It's been told. I respect her for telling her version because the version they told was somebody else's version.
I'm actually doing my version.
What's your version
Which
of
is
it?
the really messed up version.
Exploit me, use me, thrash me, trash me.
Thanks, sis.
I just don't care.
But y'all, now we've come to what might be the strangest twist in the story yet, and for me, the biggest red flag when it comes to Pam's credibility, this guy, a professional poker player named Rick Salomon. After the release of their tape, Pam and Tommy don't last forever. They end up splitting up, and after they do, Pam married this guy Rick. But before that happened, Rick used to date the hotel heiress Paris Hilton. See, Rick had a very specific type. Both Paris and Pam had appeared on the cover of Playboy. Both were frequent guests at Hef's Playboy Mansion in LA. And both had scandals involving sex tapes. And this guy Rick knew about Paris's tape very well because he was in it too. Paris claimed that she and Rick made this intimate tape when they were dating and that she always wanted to keep it private, but Rick betrayed her and sold the footage without her consent, and so she said that led to the public shaming her in a really cruel and painful way, and she said it'll hurt her the rest of her life and that she has PTSD from the experience. And you would think that that trauma would be something that Pam could totally relate to, and that Pam would be so disgusted by this guy Rick, who would release a private tape showing a woman having sex and then profit from it without her permission. But is Pam disgusted by Rick? Nope, quite the opposite. Pam finds Rick attractive. So attractive that she ends up marrying him after he does this horrible act, which should have been a deal breaker for her. And the fact that it isn't makes it hard for me to believe that Pam really finds this new Hulu show so traumatic, yet marrying a dude who sold a sex tape was just fine. This really makes me wonder whether Pam was legitimately that upset about the release of her own allegedly private tape, or whether she was laughing behind the scenes, cashing checks. checks that maybe she told her friend Paris about when they were catching up together at Hollywood events or hanging out and shopping like they are here in Malibu in the year 2004, which, by the way, just happens to be the same year that Paris's big sex tape dropped. Oh, and here's some breaking news. Paris Hilton is doing an erotic thriller with Pamela Anderson, and it's about a woman who models lingerie for her viewers on an adults-only live streaming site. So, y'all let me know how you think this math adds up. You've been watching an excerpt from my video on the savage scammer behind the release of Pam and Tommy's honeymoon tape, and there is so much more to this story, so if you want to see the full video, you can find that link down in the description, or you can search YouTube for Pam and Tommy by Mary Betsy.